By the early 19th century, Napoleon Bonaparte held the fate of nations in his gloved hands. He was a colossus of strategy, a workaholic genius who could dictate letters to 4 secretaries simultaneously and march an army across the Alps. Yet, inside the gilded dining halls of the Tuileries Palace, where the ghost of the Bourbon monarch still seemed to linger in the velvet drapery, the emperor was engaged in a very different kind of battle, the battle against the clock. For Napoleon, a meal was not a ceremony. It was a necessary interruption, a biological refueling stop that kept the engine of his intellect running. While his contemporaries lingered over rich sauces and vintage wines, Napoleon treated dinner as a 15-minute skirmish. This stark contrast sets the stage for a culinary history that is as chaotic, disciplined, and surprisingly humble as the man himself. So the question is, what was on the plate of the most relentless mind in Europe? And what does it tell us about the emperor behind the legend? The kitchens of the imperial household were places of high anxiety. Being a chef for Napoleon Bonaparte was a prestigious assignment, but it was also a logistical nightmare. The emperor had no fixed schedule. He ate when his stomach demanded it, or rather, when his work allowed him a brief reprieve. This meant that the Grand Marshal of the palace and the head chef had to be in a perpetual state of readiness. Chickens were placed on the spit in regular intervals, one every 15 minutes, so that whenever the emperor abruptly decided to dine, a bird would be perfectly roasted and ready to serve. The rest were discarded or eaten by the staff. This wastefulness was not born of gluttony, but of an obsession with immediacy. When he finally sat down, usually alone or with his wife Josephine, the atmosphere was thick with silence. There was no time for the leisurely conversation that defined French salon culture. Napoleon ate with a terrifying speed, often finishing a full dinner in under 20 minutes. If a guest was invited, they were warned beforehand. Eat quickly or you will leave hungry. The emperor would not wait for others to finish a course before signaling for the next. It was a culinary blitzkrieg. He viewed the act of eating as a waste of time, a physical tether that kept him from his maps, his correspondence, and his administration. This behavior reflected a man who lived entirely in the future, always planning the next campaign or legal code. The sensory pleasure of the present moment was a luxury he rarely afforded himself. To Napoleon, food was merely fuel for the machine.
Despite the opulence of the empire style, the gold bees, the heavy silks, the laurel wreaths, Napoleon remained, at heart, a soldier. His palate had been forged not in the banquet halls of Paris, but in the bivouacs of Italy and Egypt. Consequently, his tastes were shockingly simple. He rejected the complex, cream-heavy concoctions of the haute cuisine that was beginning to flourish under chefs like Marie-Antoine Carême. Instead, Napoleon craved the comfort of the familiar. He preferred soups, hot, hearty vermicelli or vegetable soups, served at every meal. He enjoyed boiled beef, roasted lamb, and simple stews. There was a roughness to his table manners that often shocked the aristocratic observers of his court. The emperor was known to dispense with cutlery altogether when seized by a mood or a rush of thought, eating fried foods or cuts of meat with his hands, dipping bread directly into the sauce on the serving platter. It was a display of power in its rawest form. Etiquette is a set of rules imposed by society. Napoleon recognized no rules but his own. By eating like a soldier in the trappings of an emperor, he signaled that he was still the little corporal, a man of action who had no patience for the delicate dances of the old aristocracy. No dish encapsulated the Napoleonic mythos more perfectly than Poulet à la Marengo. It is a dish born of chaos, smoke, and near defeat.
a culinary legend that tastes of history. The date was June 14th, 1800. The setting was the plains near Alessandria, Italy. The Battle of Marengo had been a savage, seesawing affair. For much of the day, the Austrians had pummeled the French forces. Napoleon, usually the master of the field, was on the brink of a disastrous loss. However, the late arrival of General de Salle with reinforcements turned the tide, securing a miraculous, though bloody, victory. As the smoke cleared and the sun set over the carnage, Napoleon returned to his tent, exhausted and ravenous. He had not eaten all day. His personal chef, Dunant, was in a panic. The supply wagons had been lost in the chaos of the retreat and counterattack. The larder was empty. Dunant, fearing the emperor's temper, sent men out to scavenge whatever they can find in the war-torn countryside. They returned with a bizarre assortment of ingredients: a few scrawny chickens, some eggs, tomatoes, garlic, olive oil, and river crayfish caught in the nearby Bormida River. With no butter and no wine, Dunant had to improvise. He chopped the chicken with a saber, browned it in olive oil with the garlic and tomatoes, and splashed it with some cognac found in a soldier's flask. He fried the eggs and garnished the dish with the crayfish. He served it on a piece of tin, the steam rising into the cool evening air. He ate it, and he loved it. But more than the taste, he loved the context. He had eaten this strange, improvised stew on the day he snatched victory from the jaws of defeat. In his mind, the dish became a talisman. It was lucky. Although no primary sources confirm it, a popular story claims that, months later, back in Paris, Napoleon requested the dish again. Dunant, wanting to refine the battlefield scrap nature of the meal for an imperial palate, substituted white wine for the cognac and removed the crayfish, adding mushrooms and truffles instead. Napoleon took one look at the refined plate and pushed it away. "Return the crayfish," he reportedly ordered. "I want it exactly as it was at Marengo." From that day forward, poulet à la Marengo, crayfish, fried eggs and all, became a fixture of his diet. It was a superstition he refused to break. Every bite was a memory of survival, a reminder that fortune favors the bold. It stands today as perhaps the only classic French dish to be strictly defined by the superstition of a single man. While Marengo was the star, the supporting cast of Napoleon's diet was surprisingly humble. He had a deep affinity for starches, particularly potatoes and lentils, which he ate with a relish that baffled his courtiers. But it was his love for pasta that betrayed his Italian roots. Macaroni with Parmesan cheese was a staple, often brought along during his military campaigns. In the freezing mud of Poland or the heat of Spain, the emperor would find comfort in a bowl of pasta, a simple link to his childhood in Ajaccio. His preference for meat was equally unpretentious. He enjoyed a good roasted shoulder of lamb or a simple cut of boiled beef. He required the meat to be very tender, almost falling apart, perhaps to facilitate his lightning-fast eating speed. Chewing was, after all, another delay. If food was a necessity, drink was a discipline. In an era where heavy drinking was common among soldiers and statesmen, Napoleon was notably temperate. He detested drunkenness, viewing it as a loss of control, and he rarely drank spirits. His wine of choice was a high-quality red Burgundy, specifically Gevrey Chambertin. He was so attached to it that his entourage hauled bottles of it across Europe, even to the burning gates of Moscow. Yet he almost never drank it pure. He diluted this exquisite vintage with equal parts water. To a wine connoisseur, this was sacrilege. To Napoleon, it was pragmatic. He enjoyed the flavor, but he could not afford the mental fog of intoxication. However, there was one liquid he consumed with religious fervor: coffee.
"Strong coffee and plenty of it awakens me," he once wrote. "It gives me a warmth and unusual force, a pain that is not without pleasure. I would rather suffer than be senseless." Coffee was the fuel of the Napoleonic administration. He drank it at breakfast, after meals, and late into the night as he dictated letters. It was the chemical spark that kept his formidable brain firing. Yet, even within this strict and utilitarian diet, the emperor allowed himself specific, modest indulgences. Historical records revealed that Napoleon possessed a particular weakness for fresh green almonds. His valet noted that he would often consume an entire plate in a single sitting, eating them with the same rapid intensity that defined his other habits. He also found comfort in simple waffles, gaufres, served with cream, a rare texture of luxury in his otherwise plain regimen. His relationship with chocolate, however, was less about pleasure than performance. While he enjoyed it, he treated chocolate primarily as fuel for his legendary work ethic. During long campaigns or late nights at the Tuileries, he would sip hot chocolate or chew on small chocolate lozenges. Much like his heavy consumption of coffee, this was a functional stimulant, a tool designed not to pamper the palate, but to sustain his energy through the exhausting hours of command. Perhaps his most peculiar habit involved licorice. Napoleon was rarely seen without a small box of licorice mixed with brown sugar in his waistcoat pocket. He chewed it constantly, ostensibly for digestion and to soothe his throat, which often grew hoarse from shouting orders or dictating for hours. The black stain of licorice on his teeth was a common, if rarely painted, detail of his daily appearance. It was a small comfort mechanism for a man carrying the weight of the world. For years, historians and forensic scientists have debated the cause of his death on May 5, 1821, oscillating between romantic theories of arsenic poisoning and the grim reality of pathology. However, the most authoritative historical evidence and modern medical reviews of his autopsy point decisively to advanced gastric cancer, a condition likely exacerbated by a lifetime of chaotic dietary habits. The diagnosis of stomach cancer was, in a tragic sense, a family legacy. Napoleon's own father, Carlo Bonaparte, had died at the age of 38 from a hardening of the stomach, a 19th century term for a tumor. By late 1817, the exiled emperor began to complain of dull, gnawing pain in his right side, accompanied by nausea and chills. As the months turned into years, these symptoms evolved into a relentless agony. He suffered from profound weight loss, bouts of fever, and intractable vomiting. His personal physicians were often baffled, misdiagnosing him with hepatitis or liver ailments due to the referred pain, yet Napoleon himself seemed to possess a grim intuition. He frequently touched his side, referring to the knife twisting in his gut, suspecting he was succumbing to the same malady that had claimed his father. The severity of Napoleon's condition cannot be fully understood without examining the fuel he provided his body. This habit of tachyphagia, rapid eating, placed immense strain on his stomach, forcing it to work harder to break down food and leading to chronic indigestion and acid reflux long before his exile. On St. Helena, the quality of food deteriorated. The provisions supplied by the British were often subpar, and the lack of fresh vegetables combined with the stress of captivity likely weakened his immune response and gastric mucosal defenses, creating a fertile ground for the carcinoma to spread. In the grim final days of 1821, the emperor's decline was precipitous. He began vomiting a dark coffee-ground substance, a classic sign of upper gastrointestinal bleeding caused by the ulcerating tumor. When the autopsy was finally performed by Dr. François Antomarquis in the presence of British observers, the findings were stark. The report detailed a stomach filled with a substance resembling coffee grounds and a massive, ulcerated lesion near the pylorus, the opening from the stomach to the small intestine. The stomach wall was described as serous or hardened, confirming the presence of diffuse gastric cancer. The ulceration had actually penetrated the stomach wall, a catastrophic perforation sealed only by the liver acting as a plug. This evidence laid to rest the immediate mystery of his death, revealing that the man who had conquered Europe had been slowly defeated by a combination of genetic predisposition and a lifetime of dietary abuse. In analyzing how Napoleon ate, we find a mirror to his soul. The speed of his meals reflected his impatience with anything that did not advance his goals. His preference for simple, boiled meats and diluted wine showed a man who valued substance over style and control over indulgence. His superstition regarding chicken Marengo revealed the underlying anxiety of a gambler who knew that even the greatest genius needs a stroke of luck. History often remembers the emperor on horseback, sword raised toward the horizon, but there is equal truth to be found in the image of him sitting at a small camp table, surrounded by the noise of an army, dipping a piece of bread into a humble stew. Eating, for Napoleon, was never about the joy of the senses. It was a strategic operation. It was about maintaining the energy required to reshape reality. In the end, the culinary legacy of Napoleon is not found in the grand banquets of the empire, but in the improvisation of the battlefield. It is a legacy that reminds us that history is not just made in throne rooms and council chambers, but also in the quiet, hurried moments between the fighting, where a man eats simply to find the strength to fight another day.